Fellas, Ultimate Fighter is basically one of the biggest TV shows to come out of the UFC. So today I'm going to be building an Ultimate Fighter rivalry in every UFC weight class. So essentially I'll be picking two people from every weight class who I think would fit really well as coaches on the Ultimate Fighter. And we've just had announced that, well, I don't know if it's official, but apparently the next Ultimate Fighter is going to contain middleweight and featherweight fighters. So I need to see how that's going to go. I have no idea who the coaches are going to be, but hopefully it one-ups the one we had this year, because McGregor Chandler, although it was probably two of the biggest stars we've had in a while when it comes to, actual star power, the actual season was kind of terrible. It just didn't feel the same. McGregor was an absolutely terrible coach. So today we're going to be building two coaches who I think could make great rivalry and just do really well on the show. Let me know your thoughts on the show itself. But the heavyweight division, I'm going with John Jones and Tom Aspinall, because who else is there for John Jones? Because listen, it's going to have to include John Jones in the heavyweight division for me. He's, one of the greatest of all time. Some people put him as the greatest of all time. I personally do. And I think he'd be good on the Ultimate Fighter. He's coached before. I don't know if he was a full coach or he was just helping, but he seemed to be all right before. And I'm matching him up against Tom Aspinall, because who else is there to pair with John Jones? Sergey Pavlovich has just been knocked out, doesn't even speak English. Volkov doesn't really speak good English. Cyril Gane speaks English, but he's already fought Jones. I know there's Francis Ngannou, but first of all, the main reason is Francis Ngannou isn't in the UFC, so I'm going to include Tom Aspinall, the interim champion. First of all, this will be massive in the UK. Like, Ultimate Fighter, it's never really been big in the UK. I know Bisping did it before, but back then MMA wasn't really big in the UK. Ultimate Fighter is mainly just an American reality TV show, but to get some eyes from the UK or more worldwide is just to bring a British fighter, or our biggest British fighter right now in Tom Aspinall. Well, one of our biggest. I know we've got Leon Edwards and Paddy Pimblett, and before you all start commenting here because I said Paddy Pimblett, listen, he might be a terrible fighter, but he's still a big star. Anyway, Tom Aspinall, yeah, bringing eyes from the UK. We can even do the whole UK versus USA thing, where Aspinall's fighters are from the UK, and then John Jones's fighters are from USA. It's the best heavyweight fight you can make at the end of it as well. So after this season's done, you've got an insane fight that we all want to see. Nobody wants to see Stipe versus Jones, especially not in the Ultimate Fighter. That'll be one of the most boring seasons ever. And the thing is, there's already a rivalry brewing between them. I know Aspinall apologized on Twitter, but it was sarcasm. But yeah, they've been kind of going, I'm not going to say going at it, but there's definitely something brewing between them on Twitter. And I feel like there'd be a little bit of tension in the entire season. So I'm going with Tom Aspinall versus John Jones as the Ultimate Fighter coaches on, I don't know, any season in the heavyweight division. Let me know your thoughts, because I think that's a really good fight. And I feel like the rivalry could be pretty fun as well. Light heavyweight, I'm introducing Israel Adesanya to the light heavyweight division. That's right. We're going to have Pereira versus Adesanya, third MMA fight in the Ultimate Fighter. This would be an insane season. I feel like they'd both be genuinely good coaches as well. I can't see them doing the McGregor route where they, just go in and out. I can genuinely see them both being really good coaches. I know Pereira sometimes coaches at the gym. He's out with Glover Teixeira. Pereira's already ready to welcome Izzy to a title shot. Now, does that mean Adesanya deserves a title shot? No, but it's the fact that Pereira's willing to introduce Izzy, and there's something in it for both of them. In Adesanya, listen, the score is 1-1 in MMA. I know Pereira's whatever 3-1 outside of MMA, but in pure MMA in the UFC, they're 1-1. It's a chance for Adesanya to actually beat Pereira, beat his score, and get a chance of redeeming what happened. It's also a chance of him, not happened at the last fight, but happened, in kickboxing and everything, so we can make it 3-2. Also, on top of that, Adesanya has fought for the light heavyweight belt before. He's failed. It's another chance of getting that light heavyweight belt and becoming a two-time champion. Well, not a two-time champion, but a two-weight division champion. Not at the same time, though. And Pereira, it's a chance for him to redeem himself after what Adesanya did to him in April. Listen, you can say what you want about the score, but in the last fight, Adesanya did sleep him, unfortunately. So it's a good chance for Pereira to welcome Adesanya to his division and sleep him and get redemption on it. So I think there's a big it factor for both of them. Oh, no, that's the wrong word. It's something big for both of them at the end of it, and I feel like it'll be a really good rivalry. They've already started talking trash to each other again, obviously. Well, Pereira didn't really talk trash, he just called him out. Adesanya's been laughing at him for the knockout and everything, so there's definitely something starting there. It was one of the funnest rivalries before, and I want to see it one last time in MMA, on the Ultimate Fighter. Both as coaches, I think this could be a really good season, so I'm going to go with Pereira and Adesanya. Middleweight, I'm sticking with Adesanya. Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. Who else is there? in the middleweight division. Now, I know Sean Strickland would make it really funny, but first thing, I just don't see Dricus and Strickland having a really good rivalry. I don't see Strickland and many other people in the division having a good rivalry. We've already seen Strickland and Adesanya fight before, so I don't want to see that kind of thing again. And on top of that, I feel like Strickland would just get fighters, and then the entire season he'd just be hard sparring them. I just imagine Strickland hard sparring them, dipping in and out of training camps. And although I think he'd be a decent trainer, I just don't think he'd take the show that seriously. So I'm going to do Dricus versus Adesanya, which is the biggest, if not one of the biggest at least. I know there's Hamzat Chimaev versus Adesanya and things like that, but it's probably one of the biggest middleweight fights you can make. Dricus versus Adesanya. Now, this would have made more sense if Adesanya was to have gone out there and beat Sean Strickland, but it still makes sense as a massive rivalry. We've got the whole South African thing. We've got the whole face-off that they did in UFC 290, I think. Yeah, UFC 290. They had the massive face-off. It settles their rivalry for good. We don't just have to keep having exchanges between them both, talking about each other online. We can finally have them in the octagon, and we can have it on a big show like The Ultimate Fighter, and I think this would be a really good season. I think they'd both be really good coaches. And yeah, middleweight, I'm going Dricus and Adesanya. I think they'd be great. Welterweight, nobody wants to see Bilal Muhammad. Nobody wants to see Leon Edwards as the coaches. We want to see Colby Covington, and I've put it against Ian Gary. The reason I've put Colby against Ian Gary is because this would be the end of Ian Gary. Listen, you can talk about Ian Gary at the UFC 296 press conference of what Colby's going to do for 25-30 minutes. But imagine what Colby Covington would do if he had an entire season of Ultimate Fighter to just flame Ian Gary. It would be humiliating for Ian Gary. The whole season, he'd just be giving it all this. Ian Gary wouldn't have no response. He's just going to be Colby Covington cooking him for the whole season. And then in the fight, maybe I'm just speaking too soon, but I genuinely see Colby Covington just taking him down and mauling him. I don't think Ian Gary's built for Colby Covington. Now, this fight can actually happen as well. I'm not saying it can happen on The Ultimate Fighter, but the fight itself can happen. If Leon Edwards beats Colby Covington and Ian Gary loses to beats Vicente Luque, then we could easily see Colby Covington versus Ian Gary. Ian Gary can fight a #1 contender in Covington if Covington loses to Edwards. So that fight is actually I could definitely see this fight happening in the welterweight division. They already dislike each other. There's been words online from Colby Covington. I'm pretty sure Ian Gary hates him as well. I'm not sure most welterweights like Colby Covington, to be fair. Colby is an Ultimate Fighter coach as well, would just be insane. He'd probably have some of the best TV moments. Now, I would have preferred to see Colby Covington versus Masvidal, but again, Masvidal's not in the UFC, so we're just not really going to talk about him. So, this would be a great season, just Ian Gary getting flamed by Covington. I want to see this rivalry. I want to see this on The Ultimate Fighter. Two big coaches as well. And before you say that Ian Gary's not big enough to be a coach, listen, there was literally a females Ultimate Fighter year in, 2022? We had to deal with females. We can deal with a bit of Ian Gary, all right? And I'm not, this is no disrespect to female MMA, but on a show like The Ultimate Fighter, we probably don't want to be seeing that as the head coaches. Lightweight division. I know I disrespected McGregor at the start a little bit, saying that, listen, he wasn't the best coach, but at least give him a fun, opponent. I'm going Tony Ferguson now. Regardless of the fight itself, maybe McGregor would absolutely manhandle Tony Ferguson in a fight nowadays because we're literally having to match Ferguson up against Paddy Pimblett. Ignore the fight. Imagine how good this would be if Tony Ferguson was against Conor McGregor as a coach. It would be the weirdest season of Ultimate Fighter I think I've ever seen. I'm just really curious how these two would interact with each other. Honestly, I'm really curious how they'd interact with each other. I can just see Tony Ferguson being really weird and somehow making McGregor confused. I don't think McGregor would go full-on trash talk against a guy who's not really in it. Not really the smartest guy, or maybe not just the most smartest guy common sense-wise in Tony Ferguson, the guy that trips over wires, but it'll be one of the greatest scenes ever, in my opinion. At least, I don't even think they'd fight or anything. I don't think they'd get into scuffles. It would just be a really weird season, but it'll be so entertaining to see Ferguson and McGregor interact as kind of like enemies in a way, because obviously they're on different teams. It'll be a really strange build-up, and maybe the fight McGregor would hurt him, but I just really want to see Tony and McGregor on The Ultimate Fighter. And I still think Ferguson, even though he's one of the weirdest guys ever, and he'll probably get his fighters to start, kicking lampposts and whatever, I still think he'd be more successful as a coach than what McGregor would be. So I'm going with Ferguson and McGregor at lightweight. I feel like they kind of missed the opportunity, and they should not have done Chandler, but either way, I still think that's a great matchup. Featherweight. Volkanovski versus Topuria. It's already happening. The fight's already happening at UFC. Is it UFC 298? I think it is. We're seeing Volkanovski versus Topuria. Great fight. Now, the one reason I've chosen this is because it gives Volkanovski more time. Assuming they're going to do this, I know they do it around May time, but let's say they were going to do it now. It would give Volkanovski more time off. He's got a lot more time off, obviously filming the show, and the fight's right at the end, so he's going to have more time off since the knockout, and he's still kind of... I know he's done Ultimate Fighter before against Brian Ortega, and by the way, this would be way funner than the Brian Ortega one. We've got a guy like Ilia Topuria who's willing to trash talk. He'd be way more interesting than the Brian Ortega season, but it would give Volkanovski more time off to kind of train, heal, but he's still getting involved in MMA somehow because he's coaching fighters. It's an amazing fight at the end, the best featherweight fight you can make right now. It's a competitive build-up as well. You get to see them both kind of being competitive. The first kind of dance partner that Volkanovski's had in a while that would actually kind of challenge him, not only in the fight, but also I feel like he'd be willing to trash talk him a little bit. I mean, Holloway did a little bit. Brian Ortega, it was not really much. Korean Zombie did nothing. Yair Rodriguez did nothing. Volkanovski versus Topuria would be a good build-up, and I'd love to see this fight. Way better than the Ortega one. Best one you can make in the featherweight division, in my opinion. We've got Topuria and Volkanovski. Bantamweight, it's got to be the biggest rivalry right now, and I'm going Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. Again, another fight that's been announced for UFC 299. Yeah, this is to be great as the Ultimate Fighter. It'll be absolutely insane. They're both really competitive against each other. Like, any way that they can find to one-up each other, they'll do. They've been comparing against how they performed against Pedro Munoz. They've, been comparing how they fought the first time when they fought. They're just really competitive, and they genuinely don't like each other. Maybe it is a little bit of an act because they're trying to build up a fight, but I still don't think they like each other. I think they, especially Marlon Vera, I really don't think Marlon Vera likes Sean O'Malley. I genuinely think they dislike each other, but that just make the rivalry so much better as well. Amazing fight at the end as well. It's also, there's something in it for both of them. It's a chance for Marlon Vera to get the belt, because if you beat Sean O'Malley, he's now the champion of the world, and if Sean O'Malley can beat Marlon Vera and absolutely destroy him in the fight, then that shows that the first fight, not necessarily it was a fluke, but he's beaten the only guy that's ever beaten him in Marlon Vera. And yes, it might have been because he got injured in the fight, but he still lost to him at the end of the day. So this would be a great season, man. Having Sean O'Malley and Marlon Vera as coaches on The Ultimate Fighter. Great coach. Well, I don't know how good they would be as coaches, but at least for the entertainment side, it'll be fun. So I'm going Marlon Vera versus O'Malley in the bantamweight division. And finally, flyweight. It's got to be Manel Kape versus Kai Kara-France. The freshest, the newest, and the most exciting rivalry in the UFC, especially Manel Kape himself. The whole UFC 293 press conference, squaring up to Adesanya when his heavyweight teammate in Taito Iwaza is right there, calling out Kai Kara-France in the crowd in the Octagon interview and on the press conference. Yeah, this is going to be an insane season, and I'm going to give it most of the credit to Manel Kape. I think he's going to, maybe he's pulling heel, maybe he's going to do this every fight, maybe it's just a one-off thing with Kai Kara-France, and just in case it is, we've got to put him as the Ultimate Fighter out of every flyweight. Imagine we see a flyweight, no, I'm not sure how they're going to, I don't know, Manel Kape versus Kai Kara-France is what I'm going with. Best flyweight rivalry, amazing fight. It's also a title eliminator, so the winner of this and the winner of the Ultimate Fighter, they can then go on to call out whoever the champion is at the time. So we'll get to see both of them do it. Because let's be honest, who else is there? Brandon Moreno, I don't think he'd be great on the Ultimate Fighter. Pantoja, he would be terrible. Brandon Royval, he'd be terrible. Amir Albazi, he'll be terrible. These two as a rivalry are the only ones that make sense. So yeah, I'm going Kai Kara-France versus Manel Kape at flyweight. Manel Kape would carry the season. Probably get censored so many times, but he'd carry the season. And for me, that is me building an Ultimate Fighter rivalry between two coaches in every weight class. Yeah, just let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you agree, or some of the fight has been changed. But listen, this is what it is for me. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you for watching.